Okay, this is Che Part 1. The film is, as the title suggests, about the life of Che Guevara. It's the first part of two parts. The first part is the Argentine. It focuses on the Cuban Revolution, and it also flash forwards to scenes in 1965, I think it is, in New York.
It does, yeah. It also debuted at Cannes as a fully fledged 4.5 hour epic, but commercially it's been split into two films, which will be interesting to see if the second film suffers, as that's supposedly a lot more introspective.
The film, the first part, as it is non-linear, and you need to pay a lot of attention to the film to fully understand it. Soderbergh's proved before that he's very, very good with visuals. He's shown he can do flashy, he can do art house, he can do anything really, and in this he's shown that he's visually gifted, and that's what he's renowned for. And the really good thing about it is the jungle scenes are like they're reminiscent of Terrence Malick in The Thin Red Line. They're really shot and framed absolutely beautifully, and then the New York scenes shot more documentary style in like a grainy black and white, more handheld and immediate, and it really contrasts with the jungle scenes, but both separate storylines, they really work together still, despite the fact that the contrasts are great.
Yeah, this couldn't have been made in America. There was no American money in it whatsoever. It's in Spanish, importantly. It's a very contemplative film. It's not interested in sort of fleshing out the characters, and because of this, Che himself is very underplayed. And despite Del Toro, is very good, but we're going to get into that later. It stays away from the rituals of the war picture as well. I mean, it is a war picture essentially. It deals with the Cuban Revolution. It deals with the typical things like revolutionary speeches or inspirational speeches, so to speak. But because of this, it's sort of painfully realistic to the revolution itself. Yet it never finds the middle ground between that and Che's own personal problems. His codes, his personal philosophies that we see sometimes throughout the film, they're never fully explained, and because of this, it sometimes suffers in its narrative. And whether this is down to Soderbergh himself or the writers, I don't know, but
apparently they've been researching it for, I think, 10 years now.
Yeah,
it's put so much research into it. That's probably why the film sticks to the facts so much. And you can say it does suffer emotionally. You can't really empathise with Che or any of the characters, really.
Well, one of the film's major flaws is its voiceover, and it's not done by Del Toro, it's done via an interpreter, which is, again, painfully realistic.
The New York scenes.
Yeah, and the voiceover itself is not very enigmatic, it's not very rememberable tone, and it suffers because of that, because what he's saying is important. However, it comes across to us in a very sort of naive, underplayed, almost alien to this film kind of way.
Yeah, I think it's because it's the way that what Che is saying is so powerful, and he says it so charismatically, but by the time that the interpreter has told it back to the audience, it loses any tension, it loses any of Benicio del Toro's power. And that's why the New York scenes suffer mostly. The only times they actually work is when he addresses the UN, and it's done in subtitles. But when the interpreter's speaking for him, those scenes don't really... They're probably like the weakest scenes in the movie, really.
Major Ernesto Che Guevara.
He is the Marxist, a soldier, a physician, and the power behind Fidel Castro.
What is the most important quality for a revolutionary to possess?
El amor.
Love.
Love.
Love of humanity, of justice and truth. A real revolutionary goes where he is needed.
Well, this isn't the first film about Che Guevara, is it? There was the 2004 film, The Motorcycle's Diaries, which is an excellent film. Yeah. But this has none of that. It was a very warm film. This has none of that richness. We get no empathy for Che in here. It's so I said, it's got painful fidelity, Soderbergh, to the revolution itself, and to the facts, and to the figures, and it's almost a tactical approach. And because of this, there's no empathy for Che. We feel even when he's in the jungle having an asthma attack, he's still a very new character to us. He's not fleshed out nearly enough.
Because the way he's been written, he's very sort of colourless. I think what they were going for is the filmmakers didn't want to be too sympathetic towards him, because it's quite a touchy subject, Che, and people either love him or hate him. but they didn't want to be too unsympathetic towards him either. So what they've done is gone for a middle ground. They're sort of indifferent towards him, and what they don't realise is that they've got such a good actor, Benicio del Toro, to play him, that he could have done it either way and still got our sympathy.
Well, they never found the middle ground, did they? They have too much of the revolution and too less of Che himself, and the result is a very visually stunning film. Yet the filler, Che himself, we never quite... It's
Never
a gruffy
understand him
performance.
or-
No, and I'm sure that Che himself had a lot more charm and a lot more charisma to him than we get across in this film. Whenever we see him, he's buried in a book or he's studying, and there's none of those. He doesn't have a presence about him in the film, which I think
But
Del
it's
Toro
Del
does
Toro.
have on screen, but it's not portrayed. I think in this is Soderbergh's fault. Like I say, he's trying to remain impartial, and because of this, the warmth or the humour that Motorcycle Diaries had with that particular character doesn't come across in this film, which is a shame because it could have made it that much better of a film.
And Benicio del Toro, he does try his best, but he's such an underwritten character that he can't bring any warmth to the character, really. Charismatic as Benicio del Toro makes him, you can't really empathise with him.
And here's Steven Soderbergh with a brief interview.
The subject matter was so loaded, and there are people with such strong feelings about it, that I wanted to make sure, at least, that the film couldn't be attacked on a factual level. I didn't mind somebody saying, well, your take on him, I don't really like, or you've left these things out and you've included these things. That's fine. What I didn't want is somebody being able to look at a scene and say, that never happened.
Another part of this film is Soderbergh's direction, and he manages to combine something, because he's a very talented director, obviously, and he manages to combine visual art and political agenda, which is something that in cinema's current allegorical state not many people can do, and the result is a sort of a brilliant theme, a virtuoso and sort of styling theme, particularly in the battle scenes and the jungle scenes in particular, but also the New York flashbacks, which are done in a very documentary, handheld way, black and white, very grainy, and you do get the sense that this is almost a documentarian film. You don't get the sense it's a Soderbergh film, which is credit to him and his scope of ability, I'd say.
I'd say the New York scenes are reminiscent of some of his other films, but the scenes in the jungle are sort of, it's nothing he's ever done before.
The
Really.
New York scenes are very reminiscent of Sex, Lies and Videotape, I think, going right back to his early stuff.
I was thinking the film as a whole is sort of reminiscent of Traffic in the way that he uses different, colour and black and white to denote the two different time frames. It's really clever, and it never feels pretentious, whereas with a normal director it probably would, but he somehow manages to do it. And as usual, it's a very visually stunning film, as with all of his films. But as we said, the real problem is that you never feel any real immersion apart from right at the end, where there's a flashback to a scene. I think it's in 1955, is it? When
1955 in Argentina, yeah.
Yeah, when Che meets Fidel Castro for the first time, and this is prior to the Cuban Revolution. Che makes Fidel Castro promise him that they're gonna, after the Cuban Revolution, they'll perform a worldwide revolution, and it's the passion and hope that you can see in Che's eyes, and it's just a sad reminder of how eventually, this is going to be his downfall. The fact that he wants to change the world, but
there's a
never
tragedy
actually makes
to it, which is very fresh at the end of the film. It does set up the second film quite nicely for what we are inevitably.
It makes you
get.
look forward to the next film. Really, it sort of sets it up and everything. It's just a shame that this is the only real scene in the film where you actually feel any emotion for the character.